Let's talk about the second album from the band Good Tiger called We Will All Be Gone. This is not really a supergroup, but kind of is. Like all these band members have been in other bands before. The singer was in Tesseract for about a year, the drummer was in the Faceless for 3 or 4 years, and the guitarist was in a band called the Safety Fire. So these guys all have experience in other bands, and now they've come together and have a solid group that they're doing, not just like as a one-off like how supergroups typically do, but they're actually like a group that's staying together making music. Kind of why it takes them out of being like a typical supergroup. But regardless, what have they come and put together for us? Is it any good? Well, let's talk about it real quick. So if you've heard anything about this band, you know that they've been promoting this album for quite a while. Several months they've been putting out singles. They put out 4 singles before the release of it, and that just shows that I feel like they were, pretty confident in it. And also, sometimes things in the studio maybe can take longer than you'd like to, or things with the label. So I'm not sure if that was the reason why, or what really the case was, but regardless, they promoted this for quite a while before it came out. Couple things you're going to notice as you get a couple of tracks in. Number one, if you were familiar with the first album from this band, you're going to notice that they seem to have gotten rid of all of the screaming vocals from the first album. And the way I feel about that is I don't really like it, because on the first album they used it as a way to have more different sounds on the album. It made for more variety on the album, and I thought that was a good thing. The more different sounds you can be bringing in can help the album out, especially when you use them correctly. And I thought that they did on the first one. You didn't think of Good Tiger as a death metal band or progressive death metal band. They were just like a prog rock band that went a little bit metal sometimes, but in this one they don't have it anymore. But regardless of that, I feel like they do have more different styles of songwriting you might hear on this one. So, lose one thing but gain another. They're better songwriters on this one, I feel like. So there's still improvement. I think it would have been better if they would have kept the screaming vocals though. The second thing you're going to notice after just the first couple tracks on this is that this band knows how to write some really catchy songs. Some songs that you are going to learn the lyrics to, at the very least the chorus. And if you enjoy the style, this will be the kind of thing that you like to put on when you're driving down the road and you want to just relax and, kind of tune out with the music and be able to sing along with the lyrics. It helps you get through a long drive maybe or something. This is a good album for that kind of thing, because while they're not going to win any awards for, lyrics of the year or something like that, they make it easy to learn the songs, and they make it fun to be able to, sing along with the singer. So I thought they did a good job of that, of making a fun album that is just fun to be able to sing along to and easy to learn the lyrics to. Now, some things you might notice if you were previously unfamiliar with this band is that the singer kind of stays in a high octave all the time. Not really like lots and lots of range. Doesn't really go too low. He honestly stays where he's comfortable, and that's in a higher octave. But that being said, he does a really good job with it. He hits some really good soaring notes, maybe a little reminiscent of somebody like Spencer Sotelo from Periphery, which, funny enough, from what I've found out, the singer of this band, like I said, was in Tesseract for about a year. But even before that, he kind of came up in the scene up in the Northeast United States that was really bringing up this style of bands like Periphery, Animals as Leaders, Tesseract, those kind of bands. And he was a part of that. He knew those guys. He's still friends with members of Periphery. And it's really evident here Because something I noticed when listening to this album is that this band oftentimes kind of feels like if Periphery decided to remove all their screaming vocals and remove the gent style altogether from that. If they just, they pretty much become like a prog rock band, and that's kind of what this sounds like. Prog, as I've talked about before, is a very loose term. It doesn't you can't just say prog and go, okay, well, I know exactly what that sounds like. Maybe, if a band like Rush came out today, they might sound a little something like this. Geddy Lee, sings in a higher octave the vast majority of the time. And so that, maybe some similarities to them and Rush. Now, I wouldn't, you don't listen to this band and think, oh, they sound like Rush. But, you will hear the similarities of what I'm talking about if you listen to this. It is progressive. They don't stick with the same guitar patterns, drum patterns, and stuff like that. The song doesn't usually stay in one place. It jumps around from part to part. That being said, not every song really just takes you and grabs you equally. There's 10 tracks on this, one of them being about a 2-minute or minute and a half instrumental that kind of leads into the final track. So I guess really you could say there's 9 full songs on this album. And a couple that I didn't think really grabbed you the way that some of the other ones do that I'll talk about in a minute was Blue Shift, Grip Shoes, and Just Shy. Again, they're not really bad songs per se, but they don't grab you and just get your attention. What I said earlier still applies. They still have the kind of lyrics that you can learn fairly easily and sing along to and stuff like that. But just something about them. Maybe it's the fact that they most of those are more like middle of the album tracks, or maybe a little more towards the end. So after just listening to them, I pretty much listened to the album like as a whole each time. I listened to the ones that I really liked a little more, but I went 4 full times through this thing. And so maybe it was just that by the time I got to these tracks, it's a little harder to impress the way that, some of the other ones do. It gets harder and harder as you get through the album. The songs better have some decent change up and some new ideas coming in. Not a lot of new ideas introduced maybe in each track as you go through the album. They kind of have their sound that they like, and they kind of stick with it. But most of the time when they're doing it well, it's a good thing. But the fact is that a couple of the tracks were probably just not going to stand out as much when you do something like that. If you do every song in the same kind of style, it's hard for the whole album to really, stand out. It's hard for each track to be its own standalone good thing. Probably my 3 favorites from the album were Such a Kind Stranger, Salt of the Earth, and the closing track, I'll Finish This Book Later. I've had some funny names on these songs too, I thought. Not really for any particular reason. Most of these tracks just kind of do what the band has been, doing the whole album, but they just did it better on these ones. Maybe the lyrics were a little catchier or something. I'm not really sure, but I can tell you that these were the songs that really grabbed me. I also like the opening track. That's a good song too. The fact that it has a slow beginning and a build up to something that really just all of a sudden, boom, it comes in like that. I thought that was a good choice to make that the opening track. And they had a similar idea with the last track, though, like I said, I'll Finish This Book Later, what that one's called. This is the most unique track on the album, for sure. About the first half of it, it's about 4 minutes long, and about the first half of it is very slow and calm, and it's just kind of some guitar and some soft spoken vocals. They also use 2 different vocalists on this track. From what I heard in an interview with the singer, is that this track is kind of It's based on a book. I don't recall which book right up the moment of recording this video. I might put it in the description or in the comments or something if I find it afterwards. But it was based on a book. And from what I saw, heard in an interview with the singer, between him and the other singer, one of them is supposed to be like reading the book, and then the other one is like the character in the book, which I thought was really interesting. Or it's like the author and the person reading the book. I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was an interesting concept. If you want to look into it more, you'll find out that it was a well-written song. Fucking dog, shut up. So all in all, did Good Tiger pull it off? On one hand, you know, you've got catchy, fun songs, like I said, that they did a good job with. Just good, fun prog rock. Very reminiscent of bands like Periphery, like Tesseract, like bands like that. And that's a good thing. Those are good bands. Good Tiger pulled it off a little better than some of the other, I don't want to say rip-off bands, but bands that do those styles as well. Good Tiger seems to have done it just a little bit better, I think, than those bands. So, all that's good. On the other hand, like I said, not the most original, or not original, but not the most deep lyrics most of the time. You know, it's not going to win any awards for lyrics of the year or anything like that. And there's a few tracks that just kind of fall short simply for the fact that the band sticks with their style all the way through. So, you know, it was those 3 tracks I mentioned earlier for me. It might be different ones for you, but I can almost guarantee you that it's going to happen to you at some point on the album, that something's not going to stick out because they don't do a whole lot to change up their style on the album. So, something else I forgot to mention that I didn't care for too much on the album. Most of the production of this album is just fine, and I like it. But something about the guitars sometimes feels a little bit too distorted or too muddy or something. I can't 100% put my finger on it, but it's like it's not fully clear what the guitarist is doing sometimes when you'd like it to be, because the guitar is good on the album. It's on Metal Blade Records, so my assumption is that this is done purposefully because they thought it sounded good, but maybe it does for most people who like this style. I personally just thought it could have been just slightly better, just on the guitar. The production of everything else I thought was fine. So put all these things together, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It's, you know, several points away for sure from being perfect, but again, it's enjoyable for the most part all the way through. Even the tracks that I didn't enjoy as much, I didn't feel a great need to skip them, even if they didn't grab me the way the other ones did. And the good tracks are really good. So all in all, it's a very, very solid album. Not gonna be a contender for, you know, album of the year or anything, but this is a fun one that I will come back to from time to time for sure. So if you've heard the Good Tiger sophomore release, what did you think of it? What kind of score would you give it? I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say, so let me know, and I will see you guys in the next review.